We know people sometimes get bummed out when we have these off-week episodes. The appendices are full of great content, but people want us to move pretty quick. However, if you're looking for more, if you want kind of some different stuff to listen to while you're waiting for the next main episode, in addition to this appendix, you can go to Duckfeed.tv. That is a complete podcast network with shows that we would love for you to check out, like Watch Out for Fireballs or Abject Suffering. These are shows featuring me and Gary that are about different kinds of video games. We really enjoy them, and we hope that you would too. So that is Duckfeed.tv. Full stop. It is a place to go to listen to us talk about stuff.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is Farron's favorite.
And this week we are reading your responses to oh gosh, you confused me by saying Farron there. It's about your responses to the Road of Sacrifices. Woo,
Indeed.
Rerailed that train.
What's that? Rerailed it.
Yeah. But a big thanks to Stuart Wellington from the Flophouse, who was on last week. We decided to let him go for this right here. But seriously, go listen to that show. It's Flophouse Podcast. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and he's great.
Yes,
like he was very gracious with his time and very sweet and very very funny. I like that guy a lot.
Yeah,
so super good. Yes, we have a lot to go to read, so we're going to kind of get started here. First, we have a little bit of follow up. Sterling says via contact. So I was just listening to the Undead Settlement podcast, and regarding the Cage Hollows having a ranged attack, you brought up the idea of full contact juggling and said you wanted to see it. I present combat juggling. There's a link. It's a real thing, apparently, and it looks pretty serious. Anyways, I heard that line and figured there was a 99.9% chance I was the only listener who had ever heard of this before, so I figured I'd share, because who knows, knowing that combat juggling is a real thing might come in handy at a random trivia night down the line. And I'll include that link in the show notes.
Please do. This video, it's like a greatest hits reel of a contact juggling match. So it's a team sport. Everybody's juggling, and you are trying to stop the other people from juggling. So you're moving around, keeping these things in the air, and trying to make it so that your opponents cannot catch and throw their stuff.
It's the idea of stopping somebody from juggling. Like, I appreciate juggling, and I think it looks cool. If I'm in a room where somebody's juggling, I don't want to, it's not that I want to stop them from juggling. I don't want to be in the room with the guy who's doing it.
No, it makes me anxious.
Yeah. Like, it makes me anxious. And like, there's something, and this is a stereotype, and not everybody, there are probably tons of people who are awesome who just happen to learn how to juggle. Mm-hmm. But the kind of guy who goes to the party and is just like, hey guys, and just start tossing bags. It's like a step aside from pulling out your acoustic guitar and performing at the party.
Yeah.
It's performative in a way that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, hey, in this kitchen at this party, why isn't the attention about me? I know, I'll juggle. Yeah. And then it will become, everyone will look at me and talk to me. Like, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
To me. Unless you're on a stage, don't juggle it.
Or if it's just something you do, idly.
Yeah.
I would almost rather somebody like whip out and do like crazy yo-yo tricks.
I mean, yeah, I'm more impressed by yo-yo tricks. Probably. I mean, I guess they're both impressive. Even then, I guess it's context. I've just been in a lot of house parties where like some asshole is just like, hey, I know what'll spice up this party.
Yeah.
Juggle-lug-lug, and then they start tossing bags.
If you're cool otherwise, I think you can juggle. That's fine. Like, oh, wow, he just happens to juggle. I don't think juggling will make you cool.
No. And I don't want, if I'm having a conversation and you're next to me and just start juggling, I think that's transparently depressing. That you've done that you've decided to, like, you're so, it's like Bart. Like, we're like with Lisa loudmouth Lisa, stupid Lisa garbage face. Why isn't anyone paying attention to me? Like, that's what you're like when you just start juggling in the middle of a house party.
Well, yeah, I mean, also back to The Simpsons, you've got the three incurable diseases: achy breaky pelvis, lumbar lung, and juggler's despair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it is that makes me sad for them, but at the same time, it's not my problem. Get the confidence, stupid.
Yeah, if you juggle, I would like to see it. Send me a video of it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I still think it's impressive as a skill. It has to do with, yeah, exactly. It's totally the context.
Yeah, I had
the forum.
I had my middle school science teacher. His big thing was balancing. You could balance anything on his chin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like he would just in the middle of something to demonstrate. Well, we weren't even talking about centers of gravity. He would just pick up a chair and then like give a lecture balancing this chair on his chin. It was very bizarre.
He's trying to keep kids' attention.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like that makes sense. He's not like walking up to me while I'm talking to Carla. You know,
I just want to hear about her kids. Come on.
Yeah.
Did they pull through? Did the surgery go okay? This is serious, please.
You know, just, listen, you patchouli smelling motherfucker, get out of here.
I think that you're manufacturing a person.
I'm drawing him from an amalgam of people I've met. So
yeah, I just juggling indoors. I can't couch for that. I worry that somebody's gonna knock a vase off of a table.
That's true. Yeah. On a stage, it's great. Like watching people do scary juggling on stage is pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, or like team juggling where they juggle back and forth.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Circus arts.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle writes in via contact. We had a couple people write in about this as well, saying, I just listened to the Undead Settlement Bonfire Side Chat and I realized Solaire is actually the Estus soup. All the pieces fit. The soup being next to the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant on top of a torture table. Another pot of Estus soup has the Sunlight Talisman next to it, which was used by Solaire. And Sigurd makes it. And Sigurd makes it, which is why when you turn in the Siegbrow to the birds, you get Solaire's chess piece. When you lay it out like that, it sounds like a thing. It just the chronology doesn't add up.
Well, and it'd be really bonkers.
Yep.
Like, this is a goofy game, but like if this is true, then I don't want anyone to ever, like, when I'm dismissive of Dark Souls 3 lore, I would need everyone to be dismissive of Dark Souls 3 lore. Because in a universe in which, like, yeah, they turn Solaire into a soup, and people are going to talk about that with like reverence. You know, I that I cannot abide.
Yeah.
Then it has become the lore is officially bad.
There's there's a little bit of precedence for this though, right? Like in 2, the Sublime Bone Dust was kind of alluded to be kind of the cremains of a great saint who kindled the fire, and we even suppose that was the remains of Solaire, kind of like being used to bolster this.
Yeah,
there seems to be some kind of connection between like the life force of individuals and the great flame. And the bonfires and stuff that all kind of leads into like, you know, Estus in general, which has never been, you know, described really.
Well, 100%, like the idea of using someone's remains as an item is not the part, because I mean that's always been a thing. Like homeward bones, those are bones, you know. But using it as soup makes it a touch too silly for me.
And specifically that one person, like if it was, you know, just people like, oh, like the champions of sunlight are probably very powerful souls. Right.
Yeah.
You know, they've gone through and, you know, they are mighty heroes. So the idea that you would take something, you know, a powerful undead and turn it into something, you know, a more potent brew, then maybe.
Yeah, it's still
just
weird that it's
not
like
that
Snopes entry.
Not that particular person is the thing. If it was just like a warrior of sunlight, not the warrior of sunlight. I
really feel like if it was just like, no, we turned this covenant of people into soups, it would still be a touch too silly.
Oh yeah,
because it's soup. You know, like it's like, oh, we're just like eating them for funzos, like they're eating them for sustenance.
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes a little bit too. It's a funny theory. Like I hate to respond to this guy's joke with just like, no. Here's why that sits uncomfortably with me. But it's like the reason why it's being discussed seriously is because it does make a lick of sense. And like, boy,
yeah, you can connect the dots.
Yeah, and that just if that's the if that's the case, I don't know. Again, like I've wasted my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh man.
I mean, so let's just like in order to keep this from being like too depressing, let's just say like, oh, Dark Souls 3 has a sense of humor.
Yeah, I would much rather just think of it as kind of goofy. Maybe Solaire just likes that soup.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, and the thing is too, without getting into spoilers later, there are other lore things that suggest who Solaire might be, other than soup, that he has, you know, possibly another place.
Yeah, in
this world, and it comes way later.
Yeah,
so I don't think he's been turned into soup. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Moving on to responses to this area, Graham says via contact. I enjoyed my time in the central part of the Road of Sacrifices. Its open design allows the player to slowly comb over the area for treasures, but it's not so big that navigating is difficult. There's a lot to see in the Road of Sacrifices that make interesting scenarios. Traversing the derelict building, going around back to the ruins where the Black Knight resides, fighting with the two crabs and possibly a phantom in the middle of the lake, dueling with two warriors to gain access to Farron's Keep, and finally facing off against the Crystal Sage. Road of Sacrifices keeps things interesting by presenting an array of things to do with the ability to do them in any order you wish. It was a breath of fresh air for me after struggling with the Undead Settlement and its difficulty. Nothing groundbreaking, but very welcome.
Yeah. It is a like a reprieve. It's like a pacing thing. Yeah. It feels like it in terms of difficulty.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Randy writes in via contact saying, yes, the Road of Sacrifices, or as I like to call it, the Garden State Parkway. Never before has the protracted experience of driving along our country's busiest roadway been translated so well to a medieval fantasy setting.
Really? There hasn't been another medieval fantasy setting that did this?
Hey, you know, never before, like not as well. Like there have been a lot of pretenders to the throne. Yeah. Randy continues. We've got the Old Wolf Troll Toll Collection agency sicking their Farron barons on you, stopping you every 10 feet to collect your goofy unkindled ass. To collect on your goofy unkindled ass, rather, driven by their insatiable need for that humble leaf. We've got rocky cliff faces suddenly giving way to swampy wetlands lousy with abandoned buildings and festooned with waterlogged, misfigured crucifixes. Above it all, we're privileged with the healthy budget of beautiful views, not the least of which include flaming smokestack vistas of the Keep beyond, which stirred in me fond memories of driving past the Bayway refineries of North Jersey. Rounding out this extended metaphor, we come to the halfway fortress rest area. Here you meet fellow weary commuters Oscar and the Grouch. The latter of which renders you a card-carrying member of the Blue per Trooper Samurai Cyber Squad. And the former, seems like a pretty solid kid and seems like the type you would maybe see yourself going halvesies on a pie wit somewhere down the line. A welcome respite from the hard commute before finally continuing on towards the Carthus Tunnel, leading to the Greater Irithyll metropolitan area where Ashes seeketh employment.
A bunch of Jersey lore.
Yep.
I don't. I now I know.
Yep. Don't get cocky. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Randy. I'm going to read two of them because this one is one sentence. Mm-hmm. First up, Gordon says, back in another life, I used to work for a zoo and in a walk through an aviary filled with the world's largest pigeons, or I would walk through, a walk, like a noun.
Yeah. In a walk through aviary.
Oh, a walk. Okay. Yeah. In a walk-through aviary with the world's largest pigeons. Something that I discovered there is that a surprisingly large number of people are terrified of birds. Now I understand why. Now we all understand why. Christ.
Well, yeah, because they explode out of people.
Yeah. Yeah, you're terrified of birds until you are a bird.
Hey, Gordon. Gordon, reach out to me. I want to hear about these pigeons.
Kole does love birds. Send Kole. You guys start a private pen pal where he talks to you about pigeons.
Yeah, just tell me about these pigeons, man. I'm reading a great book. It's called Unseen City. It's about all of the wildlife in urban areas. There's an amazing chapter on pigeons.
Yeah, pigeons are great.
Yeah.
I never understood the hate for pigeons.
Yeah.
Like they're cute. Mm-hmm. And they're just kind of like cruising around.
Yeah.
They bob their head to the beat of Third Uncle by Brian Eno. If you're listening to that on your headphones. Like it's pretty great.
Yeah. No, that chapter, its main point is all the things that are bad about pigeons are a result of us moving into their shit. Yeah. Like all the disease and stuff that only happens because we're there.
Real monsters, man. Mm-hmm. Joe says via contact, to be frank, I am a filthy casual. Get out. How'd you get through the screener? You had to click a little captcha that said you weren't. However, I was able to take one important thing from Dark Souls 2, weapon scaling. Thus, in Dark Souls 3, I figured it would be of some importance, or the same importance. I believed I was mistaken, at least early on, as I couldn't find any weapons that even had B scaling, much less A. Just when I was giving up hope with my strength-only build, in stepped Man-Eater Mildred. I triumphantly kicked her off a cliffside and took her weapon, the butcher knife. I'm almost finished with my first playthrough, and I'm still using it. For me, this area was the final chapter for identifying who my player was going to be, what weapons he was going to use, and how he was going to face the challenges ahead. I also believe that this area was the place where I became fully immersed with the game, and I was mastering enough concepts to feel at one with it. Yeah, a lot of love for that butcher knife.
Yeah. A scaling is so important, especially
it's
like
really,
right
it's
out
real
the
nice.
gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing. Like my plus 10 sharp Uchi katana not having a scaling was like such a bummer,
Yeah.
you know, in with my dex build.
I wonder if that was like a concession to the fact that you could get it so early. Like if
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they didn't want to. I mean, well, you can get the Uchi really early in Dark Souls 1 as well, though.
No, yeah, you have to kill the undead merchant.
Yeah. So I don't know what it was. I mean, scaling in general is subdued until a little bit later in the game.
Yeah.
In this game.
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of part of the general power curve.
Yeah. I think it was smart of them not to include something like the club in Dark Souls 2, which was just like, oh well, here's just a degenerate strategy because this has a scaling on strength.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna walk around with a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, power stancing clubs in Dark Souls 2 is super fun. It's really great. Like that's a great weapon. I mean, we haven't talked about it that much, and I don't want to get into a whole side thing, but I'm really bummed that they got rid of power stancing.
Yeah.
Because I think power stancing opened up a lot of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun.
Yeah. That's nice variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Actually, no, I think we don't have to get into a whole big thing. I like the idea that by having the dual weapons on one slot, you don't have to have a lot of carry capacity to use them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just wish there were more of them then. Like
Yeah.
they're almost entirely dex weapons with an exception of these like maces you find later.
Yeah.
But they're almost entirely just like dagger like dex weapons.
Yeah. They kind of fill the role of twin blades.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Which are fine. Like twin blades are fine and cool, but I like the idea of being able to strength dual wield too. If I'm going to be like a big heavy smashulon, like let me go all out. You know,
You're pretty fond of the Yulon suffix
Yulon's
today.
my favorite suffix recently.
Yeah.
Smashulons are what we call me and Brayton and Will have all dubbed the knights that are in the Cathedral of the Deep.
Mm.
And then it just kind of become vocabulary around here. So when like somebody's playing it and stuff, we're just talking about like, did you get past the Smashulons? It's like, oh yeah, I got past the first two Smashulons, but the third Smashulon got me.
Yeah, but the problem is beyond the Smashulons are the Stabulons.
Well, the Slashulons or Slashulons.
Slashulons. I prefer Slashulons.
Yeah.
Matthew writes in, thinking on the road of sacrifices, I learned two very important things here. The first was a rude awakening crash course in the mechanics of the game's visceral attack system. I never played Bloodborne, and though I listened to the previous season, I didn't realize just how visceral attacks worked. So when that lady with that giant rusted butcher blade broke my stamina for the first time, I had some very unkind words for the game. The second major thing I learned was to have a way to pull enemies individually. I picked up a bow and fell in love instantly. So many troublesome encounters were trivialized by using the bow. Some people might claim that that's cheating, but fuck them. Deciding to use a bow was the single best decision I made in that first playthrough. I also want to make a special mention of the single best hidden bonfire in the game. I would never have found it without a friend telling me where it was. To further showcase my shame, I was staring right at the sucker when they told me. I guess going to the right when you go through that archway is not something that I thought to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is kind of like right at the point in the game where you can solidify your build. You're like not too far embarked.
And you get that ember,
Mhm.
so you can start infusing.
Yeah,
or that coal rather. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah,
good. Kale or Kale, not sure exactly how to pronounce it. It's spelled like the leafy green. It says via contact. The Road of Sacrifices was the first area that made me realize that the world layout was much different than any previous Souls game that I had played. After getting about halfway through the game and wondering why I haven't found many upgrade items, I gave in and Googled where the location of the Fair and Kole was, since I was playing a Dex character. I realized then that the game was doing what the game was doing with level design, opting for fewer but more expansive areas. I kicked myself for being a terrible Souls player and made sure to explore everything later in my playthrough. Because it looks like he missed the ember.
Yeah.
There, or the coal.
Mm-hmm.
Easy enough to do.
Yeah, especially with that big gate kind of drawing you in the center, that can feel like kind of a intractable kind of goal, has its own gravity.
Yeah.
Luke writes in saying, The Road of Sacrifices was the place where Dark Souls 3 started to feel like its own game for me. A lot of things first introduced here become big themes for the game. This is where all of the very Christian imagery starts, with angel-like enemies, the crucifixes being borne on people's backs, all leading to a cathedral area. We also get the first hints of the painted world being important or having been opened. The angel things look like inverted servants of Velka, and their staffs reference the painted world directly. Finally, this is the first area where we saw the most lore-significant and difficult recurring enemy. Forget the Black Knights. Forget the Pursuer. Now is the time of crabs. The Crystal Sage was easy, particularly after I completely missed the little hole in the wall in those ruins. Fought my way all the way through to Irithyll and had to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now is the time of crabs, Gary.
Now is the time of crabs. 3 areas with crabs.
It's the dawning of the age of cancer.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Luke. And all true. Josh says, by contact. On my first trip through Dark Souls 3, I totally missed the Crystal Sage's office complex. Instead of fighting an easy-ish boss and heading to the area that was appropriate for my level, I went to the other much more difficult area, i.e. the Poisonous Swamp. It kind of ruined my first Dark Souls 3 experience because I went through this whole super hard stretch of the game only to be turned back because I didn't have the key from the other branch of the path, leading me to the wiki, which in turn kind of spoiled a lot of the fun of the game. Because as a gamer, and that's his emphasis, not mine, nothing could possibly ever be my fault. I blame the super samey kind of blah design of the Road of Sacrifices, and not the fact that I didn't thoroughly explore the area. Did you know there's another bonfire down by the pond? I didn't until my 3rd or 4th playthrough of the game. I know the PS4 visual clutter problem has been lamented since Lords of the Fallen, but I really am frustrated by this trend. To end on a positive note, I love the Crystal Sage's whole design, and I love running around with a big floppy hat. Makes me feel like a fancy lady at a tennis tournament.
Well, you have to keep the sun out of your eyes.
Yeah. I don't know exactly when I was going to slot it in. Probably when we did Farron's Keep. I don't like that just leads to a dead end either.
No.
Like this Dark Souls 3 has kind of shitty world design. Like not level design, the world design is bad. I think. This like weird, just little, there's nothing to indicate that you have to, because both of them are lords of Cinder. So there's nothing like from the Road of Sacrifices, you need to fight Eldrick and you need to fight the Watchdogs or the Abyss Watchers. And there are 2 areas that lead to those things. So there's nothing to indicate that you have to do one of them first in order to, so it just feels kind of cheap. Like you can teleport through bonfires. So it doesn't even being that bad of an idea or that big of a deal rather, but it feels bad to me.
Yeah. Even though you didn't waste time, it still feels like you wasted time.
Yeah, you wasted. It's not efficient. Like you're forced to go through, and it's not signaled to you in any way.
Yeah,
like the weird, like kind of just like branch structure of this world bums me out in this instance.
The closest thing that I can think of is like if through some miracle you ended up fighting your way through the catacombs in Dark Souls 1. Got past Pinwheel and then just got to that orange wall with no real reason or understanding of why that happened. Like, oh well, I guess this is the wrong way. Like that is the only thing that I could think of that would be comparable to it.
Yeah, even though the catacombs aren't really balanced for you to do that right from the start. Right. Like these are both relatively. I mean, one of them. It seems like the opinion on which one is easier is really split. Because the response said that Farron's Keep is harder. So they're both like you're not going to run into a meat wall. Where it's like obvious that you're going the wrong way. It's just inelegant. So
yeah, it feels like there could have been a better solution. Place one after the other or something like that.
Wait, if you're gonna make it a line, just make it a line. Like I don't necessarily want that to be the case. I like non-linearity, but commit to it a little bit harder than this. Or like even again, just like the way that Dark Souls 1 does it, or even the way that Bloodborne does it, where if you're gonna have an aborted kind of side path, put something as a bonus there. Yeah. Like when you go and explore Old Yarnum in Bloodborne, you get the chalice.
Right.
You don't get the key you need to actually go through, or you go down Hammock Charnel Lane, and you get the tool that lets you wear rings. You don't get the next step in the game.
Yeah.
Put optional things at the end of tributaries.
Yes.
So anyway.
Yep. Was that you or me?
That was
I believe that was you. Yeah.
Right, because I did the as a gamer thing, which I was not making fun of him. He was making a joke himself.
He put some tildes around as a gamer.
Yes.
Sean writes in via contact saying, this area was a real crossroads for me, and not just because it is where the road of sacrifices passes through the Crucifixion Woods. That is a clever pun. The Undead Settlement warmed me up to the game, but this area is where I really began to love the adventure of it. I discovered the Corvians and their connection to Priscilla, the Crystal Sages and their connection to Logan, a Black Knight and a Black Knight standing sentry. In Dark Souls 1, the player was an outsider looking in, with characters like Laurentius and Griggs marveling at the legends and history of the legendary land of Lordran. In Dark Souls 3, I traveled Lothric as one of these characters instead, as I knew the history and tales of these fabled characters and groups, and now I could learn of their legacy. The heretical storytellers that worship Priscilla, the Logan fan club led by the Crystal Sages, etc. I love the dual encounters that blocked the path forward. Your way forward is challenged by a knight from a fallen order, exile watchdog knights protecting it from Fair Keep, and one of the fanatical worshippers of Logan's teachings, the Crystal Sage. All of this made me feel like a knight from an Arthurian legend on a quest, besieged along the way by ancient cults and legendary warriors. These encounters played out against the backdrop of an autumnal wood that gave an atmosphere of melancholy beauty to the experience.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't really realize how thick those connections become in this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to depend on how you feel about it. Like, it's either going to make you feel like you're walking through your favorite book,
mm-hmm.
or like you're visiting a Planet Hollywood. And this is where the game started feeling like visiting a Planet Hollywood to me.
Yeah. It's again, ransom note kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, I know all these. Like, quit fluffing me. Get off of my crotch. You snuffling monster.
I'm off my dick for like a second. Now,
honestly, like refractory periods from like, if you're gonna make me lorgasm, like I need to have like a little break between lorgasms. Like,
this is probably like one of the best descriptions or defenses, if you want to use that word, of that right there. Like like this context of like, oh, now I'm the person with the knowledge kind of coming through this. I like that makes a sense to me, even if I don't feel exactly the same way. That's one of the better ways I've seen it put.
Yeah, it's logically sound. Yeah. Like I agree that it is an interpretation. I never felt like I was like Griggs or Laurentius moving through here, because I didn't really think of those guys in that way.
Mm-hmm.
They just live in that world, and we run into people who just live in that world
mm-hmm.
now too. It's the same world.
Yeah.
So like the idea being that when you went through it before, you didn't know it. Like essentially it's the feeling that's being described is going through something you already know.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're in the know, like you're moving through a book you've already read, and that I can understand there being kind of pleasures to that.
Yeah.
But it's not like inherently different. Like the way that things are described in Dark Souls 1 is not different than here. It's just they're describing things you already know about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's as big a difference in how the NPCs live in the world, or how they kind of talk about things. It's just, again, just like referring to stuff you already know.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah. Yep. Content. Or contentment. Familiarity breeds contentment.
Yeah. You complacent sheep.
Well, I don't mean that. I'm just saying that like it is like I think that's what you're picking up on though, is just like, oh, I've heard of that. Like, I mean, and there's two different ways it's the positive way of that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a legend I've heard and I get to walk around it, is the same thing that's happening mechanically as this game is showing me things that I already know because they know I'll like it.
Yeah.
It's just what you take from it.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is happening.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it is actually a different way of, like, I don't think it's different in the world. I think it is different in the player.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Player knowledge versus what's
player knowledge versus like what's actually in the text.
Mm-hmm.
It can be fun to read a sequel, because where all the characters are and you get to see
mm-hmm.
where they've ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it is counting on you carrying something into this, and kind of the dark back half of that, or maybe the unintended consequences is like, oh, this is just really like weighted down by what it's kind of expecting or what it's keeping on.
And I've the comparison super apt, and I'm not the first person to make it, and I won't be the last, but it really comes down to like, how much do you like the stuff in A Force Awakens?
Mm-hmm.
That is just hey, this is definitely following up on all the characters that you love, for some reason the world still revolves around them. You know, like there have been so many years, but like every single person who is a principal character there still has a job and a place of importance. Everyone is spoken of as this legend, like, hey, this character Luke Skywalker, who I initially got to know, now he's this cool legend, and I feel like I'm like in the know and in the ground floor. Whereas that stuff drove me fucking bonkers, because I would much rather have a continuation of a story than something that spends any time retreading it.
Yeah,
you know. And I like The Force Awakens way less than I like Dark Souls 3. I really kind of loathe The Force Awakens. But it's the same kind of thing, it feels like to me.
I wouldn't even have expected you to see that movie, actually.
I went and saw it on a date. And it was at a cheap theater, and it was just kind of like, well, let's just see what the fuss is about here. And it's like, it's a J.J. Abrams movie. There are explosions and space sound effects. Like, it's kind of fun in that respect. But every single time the character just like kind of like knowingly mentioned something that from the first one, or indirectly quoted a line, I wanted to leave the theater because it took me out of it. Like, it felt bad. I don't want to be serviced. Never service me. Like, I'm not. And the reason why that feels like, the reason why that feels bad, and the reason why I've been such a monster about it in Dark Souls 3, is that Dark Souls for me is at least partially defined by indifference to the player. Like, I love the fact that Dark Souls doesn't give a shit about me. Yeah. And now all of a sudden that it does, makes it feel more of a betrayal. Yeah. Like that kind of like neutral attitude towards the player and indifference is a defining factor of these games for me. Yeah. You know? Anywho, buckle up. Cause I mean, like that's only gets worse. You know, there are a couple places where I think it really does work, and we'll talk about it, but like, and again, if you just don't feel that way, that's great too. Like, if that's what you're into from it, like, I have no problem with that. I don't think that you were a plebe or a sheeple or anything like that.
Hashtag Gary hates Dark Souls 3.
Which is fine. Like, you know, there are lots of things I hate about Dark Souls 3. Tons of things I absolutely love. But I don't think anybody's wrong for thinking that. It's just like, for me, what I come to this series that is very important to me, that like is vocationally important to me. Like, I'm not trying to say that as like a argument from authority, but like, I don't think you could argue that I don't have a genuine love of these things, right? Like, I've dedicated so many hundreds of hours, like hundreds and hundreds of hours to this. Yeah. It's very important to me. My feelings are genuine. Yeah. About this. That's not what I want. Yeah. From this thing that's very important to me. So.
Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of it just feels like a missed opportunity to me. I mean, just like, that's the thing that makes me kind of like sad about it. It's kind of like, whatever, like it is kind of just like a quick little ladder down to the feel good portion of it. Like, oh yeah, like, you know, recognition, familiarity, it builds up this shorthand and stuff like that. Like, that's the kindest thing I could say about it. It just, like, to me feels like, you know, any place where they had, you know, they have something that is just like explicitly like, hey, remember this? All it does is make me think of like, yeah, I love that when it was new.
Yeah.
You know, and just like, if there was something else that could have made me feel that same way, you know, or in a, you know, a similar way, or just if it was a more indirect kind of evocation of it, like, I don't know, like, I feel like Dark Souls 2 did that a lot better, handled the echoes in a kind of like a much more tactful way. You know, and just like, looking at this, like, that direct, like, the directness of it to me feels like it lacks a little bit of tact, almost to the point of being like, profane's the wrong word, crass, any of those kind of things. It just feels a little bit like mercenary to me in a way that's kind of like, I don't know.
Hashtag Cole hates Dark Souls 3.
Well, just,
no, I do.
I'm a little bit more ambivalent about it than I think you are. At least I'm hedging until like we can talk through it, because like, this is, you know, doing the show is a big part of the way that I process this stuff now.
Me too.
Right. You know, so like, I don't want to like immediately jump onto it. I want to react as the things kind of come out in the discussion, you know, as we build a web, you know, through kind of like re-experiencing the game through conversation. Like, I want to kind of arrive at that, you know, just kind of organically through this, as opposed to kind of like taking too firm of a stance right now. But like, what I just said is genuinely how I feel. I just kind of wish there was something new in the place of the old stuff.
The opportunity cost is a real thing. You know, like every one of these, all of the energy and time that is spent on the stuff that we're talking about could have been something new in the world. And it just kind of like what it reminds me of, like that crassness and just artificial feeling to it. Like the comparison I made a bunch of times, and I think is really apt, is it's the way in Star Trek: The Next Generation how people constantly refer to the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's 2400. No art, nothing has happened since then. People are constantly just referencing Miles Davis and Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And it's absurd. Yeah. And it's fine for Star Trek because that's a goofy show, but for this, where like they've done so well with the feeling of making time pass before, that it just, to see them not indulge in that or not display their mastery of that feels like, again, like you said, a missed opportunity. Yeah. And if the idea is, once we start getting into kind of these convergy-worginess and the idea that like, hey, time is literally, places are kind of coming from different times here. Why are they all from the same time? Like it just like it, the answer to that is because we like it and we know
it's for a meta reason as opposed to something that actually like serves.
It's narratively unsound.
Yeah.
It is sound from a, like there's a narrative explanation for why time is coming unstuck. There's not a narrative explanation for why every single reference that is there is from one period of time.
Yeah.
Even if you want to, if it's like, oh, Dark Souls 2 happens on the other side of the world, it's like, well, spaces are converging. That doesn't really hold as a counter argument. But even if you want to make that argument that that's why Dark Souls 2 isn't included, why aren't there like so many cycles are supposed to have passed?
Yeah.
Like everything that is suggested between Dark Souls 1 and 2 happened.
Yeah.
Is this happens after Dark Souls 2. So all of those millennia have happened. They're just ignored because it's like Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it feels bad.
Yeah.
It takes me out of it. Like, like what happened to culture? What happened to these cycles?
We can travel to any place or time in the history of the universe, but it'll probably be London during the Blitz.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Like there's just like these moments, and I refuse. The game does such a good idea when it does explore these other like kind of epochs of giving them a sense of identity and importance. Like I refuse to believe that like, oh, it's literally just that one specific cycle with Gwyn is the only one of import.
Yeah.
If time is collapsing. And also why does time take a look at import? Like, no, it doesn't make sense within the game world.
Yeah.
And all of these kind of factors just lead up to making it feel very cheap to me. And I don't, again, I don't project that. I don't think you're wrong if it makes you feel like you're exploring your favorite book.
Yeah.
Like that's a cool feeling. And I can see the appeal of that feeling. It's not what I look for from these games.
Yeah. I almost regret bringing up Dark Souls 2 there because I know it's, not in fashion to like that, and it hasn't been since 3 months after the game came out. Like just like that kind of plays into like it's almost like me saying that was a parody of ourselves a little bit, and if that bothers you, I guess we're just gonna have to be okay with that. But I genuinely do think that I'm not just like white knighting or being a contrarian or digging into my initial stance.
Dark Souls 2 like out of the box has a lot of lore problems because they kind of refuse to define anything about those past ages. But the thing it did really right that is pertinent that you're referring to that specifically this game doesn't do. So like, if you break it down to a more granular level, the thing that Dark Souls did really well was make it feel like the very first episode where you're like, it's a palimpsest, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right.
Palimpsest or pediment.
Yeah, palimpsest. Like it is history written upon history, to where these kind of layers are scrambled. Like people are misremembering things. Time has passed. And there's none of that sense here.
Yeah.
It is just, you can draw a direct line from, Darkroot to Farron's Keep. Like, oh, it got corrupted. And now there are people there watching out for the abyss.
Yeah.
And like literally just so much so that creatures that were still there exist. And like, maybe they got teleported through time and not as much time has passed.
Yeah.
But there's not that sense of like ages having passed and there just being a lot of history and the confusion that comes with that. I don't think Dark Souls 2 was 100% successful at defining any of that history, but you do get the sense of confusion that like a long time has passed.
Yeah.
And that is a way more appealing idea to me, is that, oh, these things that were very important to me as the player are no longer important because history swallowed it.
Yeah.
Like I want to be disregarded by these narratives because Dark Souls is about elemental forces. It's not about me.
Right.
Somewhere in there, I'm not going to write it, but somewhere there's like an essay about player importance and like kind of player aggrandizement in this current generation of games between like Dark Souls 3 and Metal Gear 5 and Dragon Age Inquisition. And this idea that the player always has to be this kind of like, the narratives have to have this meta nod to the player that just thinks the player is the coolest fucking thing in the world,
Mhm.
you know? And there's something there. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to like put it all together, but that does feel like a trend I'm seeing that that doesn't speak to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't want that.
I mean, it plays into video games as empowerment fantasies, you know?
Yes.
Like it, you know, just to totally. And I will always be a sucker for a game where the person that you're playing as is, you know, a marginal figure at best. I think that's one of the best things that, you know, that kind of works in like something like Final Fantasy 12, where even your ragtag group of adventurers is ultimately, you know, minuscule on the grand scheme of things up until the very end when like gods and shit, you know,
And
get
you're not
involved.
the main character of that game.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody else is the main. Like I just don't need it.
Mhm.
Like I don't know. I don't want to sound like braggy about it, but
But I
it's
mean, just like it's a version of being coddled, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
little bit, you know, it does again. Like I hate to like that all of these kind of like center on the dick, but it's like just like climb up off my dick for like a second. I'm more interested in, you know, the world, the mood, the tone, the setting, the events, as opposed to like, you know, being told how important I am. I kind of want to determine that on my own by the things
Totally.
that I do. You know,
like it's like a hard sell. It's like a pushy salesman.
yeah.
You know, it's like a GameStop salesman.
Like look at something. So this is topical because of Fallout New Vegas. Look at something like that where, you know, even still, you know, the courier is basically a superhuman force, you know, just of like, you know, something that is moving history along. However, like you can wander into, you know, Caesar's camp and kill him, and it doesn't really affect anything because like you do have that immovable force, unstoppable object kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of going on. Like you're still a bit player in something, and like, oh, it is a little bit of a chosen one kind of thing, but it doesn't, you know, build it up aside from the reputation of the things that you do, you know?
It is. Yeah. There are things bigger than you.
Yeah.
In the world, and there are things, and that's something that's very appealing to me.
Yeah.
You know, because that's how the real world works. Like, and it's not like things have to be realistic. We're talking about a game with like, you know, dragons and shit.
Mhm.
But I think that the humanity of it needs to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, like the kind of part of it, and that's what I'm clanging up against.
Yeah.
Is it just doesn't read like it reads like a Penny Dreadful. You know, it's like it's like it feels like bad literature in the fact that like I'm so cool and everything I love is all my old friends are back.
Would you say your main character is a Mary Sue? Is this fan fiction?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. Like Dark Souls 1 fan fiction. I haven't read that yet in a review, but I'll be surprised if I don't, or if it's not out there that somebody hasn't called this Dark Souls 1 fan fiction.
It feels like a familiar idea at the very least. I don't know if I'm hitting that. Not to belabor this, but also think about the way that Dark Souls 2 handled that, which is you arrive at this area anonymous, no memories of where you're at, and then you're kind of like manipulated into becoming the next king. Possibly, you decide to take that ending. Like, yes, you are the chosen monarch, you know, just like you're the chosen undead, but like in 1 and 2, it's very much like, yeah, like you are being manipulated.
You're a pawn.
Yeah.
Whereas in 1,
this,
if you don't want to invoke 2 because nobody likes it, invoke 1. Like in 1, you are 100% canonically being manipulated.
Yeah.
By these 2 serpents. Like there are forces, you know, beyond. Whereas that doesn't feel like, I don't get a sense of that.
Yeah, like there might be shades of it, but they don't commit to it enough in 3.
Yeah. It's player empowerment is not what I want from these games.
Yeah.
And mechanically and narratively, like mechanically, it does everything it, you know, does to still it, you know, kind of disempower you and make you earn everything, which is still great because it still plays wonderfully and is ludicrously wonderful. But that kind of set-dressing piece is missing for me. Yeah. This is a long tangent.
No, it's fine. I feel like, you know, as we get through and kind of encounter these, like we're going to get these little flare-ups.
Yeah, I think so too. And if it bothers you to listen to it, examine why it's bothering you to listen to it. Because I don't think that we're not putting on airs. Like I don't think if there's gaming credentials don't exist, but you can believe that we are invested in this thing and that we love the series.
Yeah.
You know,
just like you love
evidence by our
presumably.
work.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our love of it is exactly as important and valid as your love of it. And our feelings that we had coming away from it are exactly as valid as important as yours. And that goes for anybody who writes in who disagrees with us too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're a sheeple or anything like that. It's just you're coming away from the same thing that I am. And I think you're looking for something different. So you found it.
Yeah.
Like your values are just different. And that makes it sound like I'm attacking you like a Fox News person. And I'm not. It's just you value different things from your fiction than I do, which is A-okay.
Yeah.
Finally, so sorry, Dakota. Dakota says, I'm really glad
you've been very patient, Dakota. Thank you for
thank
waiting.
you,
Step
Dakota.
up to the microphone, please.
We'll go ahead and go a little bit over. We'll close up late. It's okay. Dakota says, via contact. I wanted to touch on the lore implications of the connection between Darkroot Basin and Elysial and the Road of Sacrifices and the Swearin Swamp. I failed to mention
the Swearin Swamp is great.
The Swearin Swamp. Fuck the swamp. I failed to mention in my previous correspondence, but there's also a huge body of water to the right as you look out from the gateway at the end of the high wall. This body of water appears to touch the swamp to some degree. However, I'm not sure what the water means in this new entry in the series. The Cathedral of the Deep seems to worship its depths in particular, which makes me think that it may have something to do with the Abyss when paired with its proximity to where Elysial may have been located. In Dark Souls, though, water was used to suppress the effects of the Abyss in New Londo. It makes me wonder if we'll be getting more information about these areas of the game, or at least some of the related themes in the future DLC packs.
Yeah.
Which I think we will.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like we've alluded to the idea of the deep being something that was kind of like initially important and then kind of brushed aside as this new kind of important elemental force.
Yes,
possibly. And if it is related to Londor specifically, I feel like that has been built up so much that it would be bizarre if we didn't see more.
If we don't
that.
find out more about the Sable Church of Londor in the DLC, I don't know what. I just don't, because that's it. God, I'm not trying to just find like literally a clearinghouse for every single Dark Souls rant. So I'll say in one sentence, like one of the endings without that context, without that additional context, one of those endings doesn't hit as hard as I think that the game wants it to for me.
Yeah.
Because of lack of information about that particular organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like making that choice that you make lacks meaning because I don't have the context.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that those are good observations. I think you're 100%. 100 with Farron, definitely used to be Darkroot. And Road of Sacrifices used to be either another part of Darkroot or just near Darkroot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Darkroot adjacent. Yeah, I'm curious. I want to go. I'm not sure what view they're alluding to with that body of water. Maybe I
don't know.
Glanced over it. I kind of want to go back. I'm curious which gate they're speaking of, so I can go find it. But I may just boot it back.
There's a couple things I need to go. Like I read online recently where I have to go in the game and take a look at something. Yeah. But yeah. Thanks everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
And well, there's the last person. There's somebody on our Facebook was like, oh man, this last appendix was so short. This one's long and has content.
Yeah.
In it. If you have anything to say about the Cathedral of the Deep, go ahead and hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. You know all the things you can do. You can go to duckfeed.tv/ damn it, I always do that. I always get it mixed up. You go to patreon.com/duckfeedtv and support us there. We're really grateful for all the support we get. And that helps us do things like new shows. You know, we recently launched Monster My Podcast. We're on our way towards having a new show about the X-Men animated series hosted by Gary and Jeremy. Jeremy, frequent guest on the show.
Also a swamp person.
And a cool guy. Yeah. So just like that is the way that we're able to dedicate the time to this. And it's awesome, the support that we get.
We really, really, really do appreciate it. The something you can also do, which we've mentioned a bunch, but is super important, is tell your friends about it. Let people know that you like the show. People have been really great about that.
Yeah.
But please continue to do so. And if you want to talk to us directly, other than through the contact form, if you want to have a two-way conversation, our Facebook page is a great place for that. Facebook.com/bonfireside chat, or a Slack channel, which you can get to from donating to our Patreon. Yeah. And we can have these conversations in real time. Yeah. I can't, promise any, we try to read everything we get and we try to respond to everything that people say. I can't promise a certain amount of timeliness to that, but we definitely like interacting with people. And I love talking about Dark Souls, even if I disagree with them. People about it. So for sure.
Yeah. So I think we've got some deleted scenes here.
Yeah. And thanks again to Stuart. And until next time, Mombasa.
Without your help, we would have cursed this onerous duty long ago.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
You guys are West Coast?
I am. Cole is Middle East of America.
Yep. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Is where I'm at.
Oh, that's cool. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, originally.
Okay, yeah, you're right. A short hop away.
Yep. Are you a regular at the Montgomery Inn?
Define regular, maybe a couple times a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
So you're not one of those guys, those like old guys with a polo tucked into their like high pants.
No.
That's there every day.
If you are, you have to tell them.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's entrapment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me quickly untuck this polo. No, it's a place I go with family when they're in town. But yeah, it's good stuff.
What is it for us? It's West Coast. I mean, was it free range? What? I don't understand. What's
the Montgomery Inn? Is what you're asking? It's like a classic old rib house.
Ooh.
So it's the sort of place where like football, like sports coaches would go to hang out and like, I don't know,
discuss ribs.
Yeah.
All the finer points.
But no, it's fine. It's a good, if you like ribs, if you like old rib houses.
Yeah.
I don't dislike. I like ribs, so I imagine I like a rib house.
Sure, yeah.
Old ribs are the best. Get the cartilage can render.
Aged meat.
It slides off the bone and into your mouth.
Yeah.
Yep, and slides through your body.
You don't even need a knife. Don't need a fork or a spoon. Don't even need fingers. You just inhale it.
Yep.
It's spore ribs.
Rib spores. Gross.
You promised to tell me what section did you think was too difficult as far as bonfire placement?
Irithyll Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's a really fun section of the game, though. I think that's a really painfully, shittily difficult section of the game.
I like that area a lot.
Yeah,
it's a reference to a Demon Souls area because everything is. But it is so brutal though. Like in moving through that first section and then going all the way down, past the giant, which is a real kind of crapshoot. If you can get past the giant, unless you want to cheese them with arrows. And then get down to that sewer part, and the shortcut there is to the left. But if you imagine missing it, even if you find it, you're still going through that first part with the branding nuns and the giant, which is hard enough. But if you don't have that, the way forward is past like those 7 nuns walking in a circle around that thing. It is so hard, like to get through there without. And again, I know there's a shortcut there now, but it's not very telegraphed. Like if there's no lighting or anything to kind of guide you to it. Yeah, so I don't feel that bad. It's brutal. Like I thought that was the time where I was like, I'm out of Estus and I have to still kill 7 or 8 of these ladies.
Yeah.
And all you can do is like kite them over. I had to kite them over with like throwing knives.
Yeah. And if you have to do it more than once, it just takes forever.
Yeah.
And it's also their mechanic, their health draining thing is such even if you kill them, you're going to end up having to use Estus, even if they never hit you.
Yeah,
because they drain your maximum health down. So like it just ended up being a huge Estus tax moving through there.
Yep. I think everybody's least favorite enemy in the game.
Yeah, those things. I mean, man, I like them better than the Winter Lanterns in Bloodborne. The frenzy.
Oh yes, monsters, I do like them more than that.
Yeah, I think it is slightly better. They're slightly better than that, but like, boy, is that a rough area.
Yeah, it's good that they're kind of confined to that place.
Yeah.
And what a surprise the first time you run into one of those and you're like,
what's happening?
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to go. Thanks for having me.
Yep, this will be up on Sunday.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Oh, cool. I'll promote it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man.
Later, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.